Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Star Wars Skeleton Crew, Episode 4. My name is Grace, but of course, I'm not alone. Someone who definitely knows of AT-AT. It's Owen Jedi Knight. Owen, how you doing?
I'm great, Grace. Another fun week here with Skeleton Crew. I'm back in my home office, so I have a real microphone now. So hopefully, it's better than the last 2 weeks of hotel internet. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. It was a cute one. It was a fun one, and I'm excited to see where the story continues to go. We got 4 more weeks to go here.
Yeah, a little side journey this week for our crew. I don't know that there's like a ton happens this episode, but I did enjoy it as a singular episode. And I do feel like my take on this one is that this really, to me, does set it up as like, I think you and I are mostly talking about a children's show here, which I think like we knew. But I feel like, it's pretty, yeah, this is what we're on a fun romp. We're doing the Sandlot in space. I think like children's movies and children's shows can be good. And I feel like this is one that I'm like excited to see if my niece will watch it. That's my goal over the holiday break, is to see. And so far I'm like, yeah, we'll let her watch anything that happens in this show so far. It's like it's fine and good and fun entertainment. So
Definitely. We got to see if Rob has shown it to the boys yet. I know he was saying he wanted to.
okay.
I'll have to text him and see if they're enjoying it or how it's going. But yeah, there was a brief moment where they were approaching the planet. And I was like, they can't be back at yet. Like, this is not going to turn into some House of Cards political thriller where they try to figure out what the deal with the supervisor is. Maybe they'll get to there by episode 8, but I figured 4.5 episodes of the political subterfuge and why are these children not being taught about the war and this and that. I didn't think that would make for, like you said, a fun romp in space for the last 4 episodes. So yeah, I was excited. It definitely harkened back to some of kind of like the Fallout type like imagery. Did you watch that show on Amazon
I did
Prime?
watch that show. Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. And
same.
I like that world, and there was definitely some like similar kind of feelings with these clans and the warfare there. But I thought it was good.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I think you've kind of illuminated something to me as you were talking about the way in which we didn't get any adult content this episode, right? In terms of like the adults from AT-AT, right? I'm remembering that correctly? We didn't see a single scene from them.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's a positive to me. And here's the positive. I think that there is an instinct in shows and franchise IP shows to do everything. And this is a thing that I think Andor did really well. That Andor, part of the thing I kept hearing people be like, oh, you should watch Andor. It's like Star Wars, but no lightsabers. And on one hand, that seems like that's a detriment to it. But what I think like the Andor did so well is it knew exactly what it was, and it has not deviated thus far from being that. That is an adult show about rebellion and like the darkest, that again, I think about that scene on the bridge in that show. I was talking about that on Silo this week, just about like the rebellion content is some of my favorite content ever, and when it works in Star Wars, it works so well. And that was like the darkest version of that, the Skarsgård monologue. This, I feel like I was a little bit worried. Like, they've cast who did they cast? I was going to say Carrie Coon, but it's not Carrie Coon. I'm going to
Carrie Condon.
It's Carrie Condon. Yeah. So they have cast her. That is not an insignificant name to cast and then not have her be in a bunch of episodes. And I feel like my instinct would have been like, even 5 years ago, we would have been getting a bunch of content about the planet stuff that would maybe Disney would be thinking was appealing to older adults and more adult Star Wars fans. And I think I appreciate the way in which like they've been really restricting that. They have like basically like really held their own and be like, this show is about these kids who are romping around space with Jude Law. That's what the show is. And that's what you're getting. And the show doesn't need to be everything for everybody. It can be a good version of a type of show for a particular group of people. And I actually think, as you were talking about that, I was like, oh, that's what I think is really working about the show.
Yeah, it's showing a lot of restraint in that respect, and it's not trying to overly pander to the parents or whatever. Like, it's saying like, this is going to be fun for the whole family. It's going to evoke some of that coming of age, like nostalgic kind of energy. And I agree with you. It's doing a really nice job. And I'm glad they're not trying to shoehorn in too much content with the parents, because like I said, then it would become kind of more of a political kind of thriller type of show, which is not what they're going for. So I'm glad they've stuck to the billing. I completely agree. That's a great point, Grace.
This is going to be a wild. It was actually your point. So
well, thank you for making it even more expansive. Yeah.
This is going to be a wild comp, Owen. But can I give you the thing that I think is going to start changing the trajectory of children's, and at least content that is for people who are not adults? So that could be like young teens or whatever. The show that is going to, I think you fundamentally will see, this is how children's shows will be made in the archetype of this one show. And I'm wondering if you can think about the absolute sensation of a show that's been on, I think, since 2018, that every person I know who has kids is like, yeah, I love that show. My kids love that show, but I love that show. Are you familiar with
Bluey?
It is Bluey.
To say?
Okay.
Ring the bell. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had a bell. I should get one. I have one on my shirt. Oh, dang it.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
Okay, here's my Bluey thing, which is that Bluey does this, where Bluey is fundamentally a show for children to watch, but makes it enjoyable for the parents of the kids. And I feel like that's like there are so many shows that like my nieces will be like, oh, we want to watch this. And I'm like, oh God, okay, fine. Like you can watch it. And then after 2 episodes, they're like, we have to turn this off. I don't want to watch it anymore.
Please. Yeah.
Bluey is the thing that I think like adults are as invested in it as children are, because of the way that it is telling stories. It's telling very good stories, but not trying to be anything other than what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be an adult show. It is still firmly a kid's show, but has emotional resonance for adults as much as it does for children, and adults can bear with it. And I feel like that's a good strategy when you're designing your children's show, is like, you know, you and I don't have children, but we're going to watch it. But like, I understand the framework that I'm watching the show in. And I feel like this is one that like I messaged my brother and he was like, oh, like, yeah, maybe I'll watch that with them. And I was like, oh, my niece is named Emery. So I was like, oh yeah. Okay. Like, I feel like that's the lane the show. And I feel like Bluey has the blueprint for the way to do it.
The blueprint. Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually not watched Bluey myself, but a lot of my friends have like 1-2-year-olds now. Right. And they like you said, it's not even they can bear it. It's like the calculus of getting so the parents, they aren't just tolerating the children's show, but they're actively enjoying it. And like whether it's dialogue or themes or whatever that the adults are picking up on and appreciating. I think that's what's made it a show that, yeah, like all my friends enjoy watching with their kids. And yeah, I think you're onto something here. I've only heard rave reviews, and it's going to be a show I keep in the back of my mind for when hopefully I do eventually have kids. And it's like, yeah, I'll eventually want to watch TV with them, but not just watch, Teletubbies or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Can't say I remember. No, the name of the episode. I'm loving the episode title names. They're like taking something that gets said in the episode, almost Survivor.
Very Survivorly. Yeah, I was going to say this and Operation Italy are up there with episodes that have said the name a lot of times within the episode itself.
Yeah. So my first instinct about being on the planet was, certainly I was like, oh, they could be certainly on the wrong planet and got the wrong coordinates. And that could have happened for a number of reasons. Did like our Al is it Kim from last episode kind of like maybe she like sneaked in the wrong coordinates or something like that. And then my other thought was like, do you know what's funny about when they're like, we got to go to this planet, these are the coordinates of this planet? If you gave someone coordinates to Earth and you were expecting them to show up in New York City, but they accidentally got the coordinates for Serbia, they might think they're on a different planet. So my first instinct was like, what if they're on Ad-Aden, but not the part of Ad-Aden that is like where they're from? But no, it was a completely different planet, Owen.
No, that's something that I've thought about, whether it's in the shows and the movies or playing the video game. It's like, yeah, you're going to a new planet, but it's like you're going to one little town on the planet. Like, how big are these planets? Can you circumnavigate it in a day on a speed bike, or what is it as big as the Earth? Like, yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it seems what was this, Ad Accra?
Ad Accra, yeah.
And yeah, it's I knew they weren't getting back to Ad-Aden so quickly, but in the back of my mind there was that little hope. It's like, are they home yet? But I don't think Kim necessarily set them up. It was such kind of a hurried sequence back in episode 3 where Kim was saying something to the effect of like, there's a series of planets that were all hidden. And I guess when we see that at the end of the episode, but I'm curious if there's going to be some sort of pattern to which they are going to explore, where they're going to head to next. And it begs the question of like, are the other planets in this sequence of the at planets, are they also destroyed and in this state of, you know, fallout and ruin like we saw here in this episode? Or is at not the only suburban paradise planet? You know, are there others that have created this weird kind of situation? So it remains to be seen. But yeah, I it's curious just to see like how it's all going to connect. And Sammy was thinking like, was Jude ever involved with 33, and is he the former captain? Is that why he rushed to unplug him? I don't necessarily think so. There's been no indication that that's the case, but it did kind of ring the alarm bell a tiny bit.
Interesting theory. I'd have to go back and rewatch the scene where he sees the ship for the first time, whether or not that his reaction would make sense for that. I feel like it could be like, oh my gosh, what did you do to my ship?
Yeah. I haven't seen the ship in a decade. Oh my goodness, is that it?
Yeah. So I guess it could be that. That's really interesting. Yeah. We have, I guess that's one of the other big, because that ship is on Ad-En.
It was like buried underneath. Maybe it crash landed, and who knows what happened there. So there's more to be discovered about it for sure.
I kind of forgot that part of it. It's like getting what is going on with Ad-En, but I forgot that the ship came from Ad-En, obviously. So that's kind of fun. It turns out we're not the only ones who have thought about planet size in Star Wars and this sort of stuff. And there's a kind of a depressing article on sci-fi.com from 2022 that's like, how did Tatooine become a desert planet? And it's basically being like, this is what might happen to our Earth if we continue.
Oh, good.
Climate change. So that's depressing. That's not great.
That is bleak.
But there are a ton of articles about like what's up with the planet size of Star Wars. So that's kind of fun. Okay, we do end up. What did you make of? So they're going to run into these kids. It's the kids who are there, and then we're going to meet the society of people where the kids are entrusted to, trusted as much as adults. What did you make of this this new planet that we've found?
Yeah, the Troik clan, I believe. It was a little conflicting because on one hand, it's like the young girl.
Fern, the main girl, Fern or Kate?
No.
The young girl. Hannah, Hayna.
Hayna. Yes, Hayna was so cool and doing flips all over the place, which cracked me up. But then on the other hand, I'm like, they're conscripting their children to be soldiers, and so it's like, I don't know if this value system is something I necessarily agree with. Like, because on one hand, it's cute watching Wim shoot an oversized blaster and fall on his back, and it's like, it's like kind of fun and hee ha ha. But then it gets to the point where they're going into battle and sending the kids up ahead and like threatening them that they're going to shoot them if they run away. I'm like, this is dark. Like, this is a sad situation that these people have found themselves in. And Sweet Neil, we see in the build up to that, the showdown, the battle, whatever that you want to call it, he's waxing on about how, why does it have to be this way? Why do you keep fighting? And he sees kind of past, he sees the big picture. He's not just missing the forest for the trees, as it were. And he's talking to Hayna about like, you don't have to live like this. Like, why are y'all fighting over, this cattle, basically? And it was a fun sequence, but it also made me a little sad. Like, there were moments where it's like, I want to laugh and think this is cute, but also like, I feel bad for the children of this planet where, and it's kind of a parallel for real life where, we're lucky that we get to have jobs and talk about Star Wars and Survivor in our free time for fun. And then all over the world, there's people that are fighting over resources and in much more bleak situations. So it was like a little deeper than a children's program. So I did appreciate that.
That's true. My instinct is to say like I wanted it to be a bit lighter. I think like the story is pretty deep, and ultimately like the ending that she does stay behind. But yeah, it is pretty deep, and it to the level at which I've been talking about whether it's a kid. I keep like hesitating on like kid show because I do think I think you're thinking about like preteen is like my sort of like the lower end of the thing. My niece is 8, and I feel like you could watch this, but like this episode does deal with some darker themes, and I like the idea of every time we get to go see somewhere that's like new that we haven't explored in Star Wars. And even if it's a riff on something we've seen, like I think like basically the first episode or the second one, I guess, where we have the like bar tavern scene, right? Like that, like the captain or the pirate doc, that's like has cantina vibes, but like darker. I mean, even in that second episode, I like believe, yeah, it's like a brothel worker that like goes to help them, right? Like we're not shying away from being somewhat adult. We're not like sanitizing it maybe as much as you might expect if I say like, oh, it's kind of a kid show. Because yeah, this is pretty heavy. I think my instinct is like, I don't know that it totally worked. I think the other thing I maybe would have liked is nothing against, obviously I'm not going to critique this kid's like acting, but I like, could we have like done some creature design? Maybe they spent it all in the pirate docking. Like what type of people could we have met on this planet would have been, I think, fun. I feel like it was just a little bit like, yeah, it's fine, it works, but I think it could have been better.
Yeah, I agree. It got a little tonally confusing towards that last sequence there. I was like, where, like, what's happening? And like, just even like the way they're talking about running away 2 feet from all the Troik adults, it's like, you're not even whispering, talking about deserting this like ragtag militia that you just joined. Like, I don't know. It just, yeah, it pulled me out of it for a minute where I was like, what exactly is happening here? What are they trying to say? What are they trying to do? But I think to your point about like, is this a kid show? Is it not? I feel like this is something that would go over some like children's heads. But as like you said, if you're getting into more like preteen territory, they might be feeling some more emotion or depth to it. And like the parallels of seeing when they first get to the planet, like the house that looks exactly like all of their houses. And like they realize like, oh, wait, this planet was like ours. And that used to be the supervisor's tower. And this used to be the school. But now it's this war-torn version of it. Yeah, I mean, I think it succeeded in a lot of senses. But yeah, I thought the foggy almost battle sequence was just a little like, it was darker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, can I tell you, there was a set of directors who were slated for an episode, and I sort of like closed my eyes and hoped that this episode wasn't their episode, because I was very excited when I read that there was the Daniels were doing an episode. The Daniels are the directors of Everything Everywhere All at Once and wrote it. This is their episode. And I'm a little like, oh man, like I feel like there could have been, this episode, I feel like it lacks the one thing that the other episodes have had so far, which is like a little bit of whimsy.
Yes.
And like there is the Neil being cute stuff that does work here. And I liked the ending of the 33 stuff, but I feel like the actual like going to the play, what it reminds me of, Owen, is, are you a D&D player? Have you ever played D&D?
I've played once.
All right. So there's also when you're the dungeon master, the fun of D&D is that your players can do whatever they want. And you as a player can do whatever. If you're like, literally like your DM can be like, we arrive in a town and you're here. And they're like, we want to go that way. And you're like, I didn't plan for anything over that way. But you resist the instinct to be like, you can't do that. So then you have to like make it up as to what happens and move all your stuff around to like make that story satisfying. And this to me feels a little bit like, it's like, we're going to go to a planet. And they're like, okay. And they're like, you're going to go to that one though? And they're like, yep. And it's like, okay, so then on the planet, it's a bunch of adults with some kids and they treat all the people like adults. And so that they're like, and I was like, yeah, I feel like there could have been more. We could have done something, but like a little like rush job. And I'm a little bit extra disappointed that it's the Daniels episode, because I feel like if you think about the wackiness of Everything Everywhere All at Once, boy, we really could have had a lot of fun with the Daniels doing the episode. And this one's like, that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah. It's funny you bring them up and you bring up Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that was the first film I watched after getting back from Survivor, and I almost like vomited in the theater because it was so overstimulating. I was
that's wild,
crazy. And I also went on a day where it was a hard of hearing accessible screening, and so there were subtitles on the screen. And in the beginning, I was just like, there is so much happening right now. Like, what is going on? So I need to rewatch that movie, I think, with a clearer head and like being more well-adjusted to society. But yeah, of course, I remember the hot dog fingers and just all the wackiness of it. And yeah,
googly eyes, rocks, like it goes wild in that movie.
Yeah, and this episode, definitely lacked in the whimsical department. But yeah, I thought the kids did a good job. I think I appreciated that we start seeing some of the cracks in Fern's like very precocious, confident facade,
Mhm.
right? You know, she has that little breakdown in the tower, and you know, she says something like she doesn't know what she's doing, and it's kind of she's just kind of putting up a front. So I appreciated the kids. I think they're doing a really nice job. I mean, we've already touched on it a little bit, but Neil, what is Star Wars legend already? Like really adorable character. I saw someone on Reddit saying they would take Neil over Grogu at this point, and
Wow.
well,
That's bold, I think.
it is bold. I don't know if it's a super hot take because like Grogu doesn't talk yet, you know. So like if they give Grogu like
He gets into more trouble too, Grogu.
yeah,
He's eating
yeah,
the fish eggs and, all
yeah,
that stuff. Yeah, pushing
yeah. I
buttons.
mean, it's
Yeah.
it's tough competition in the cute category at the best of Star Wars award ceremony, but I thought it was still good, and I think it helps still progress the plot, you know. And now it brings up some more questions as we head into it. So what do you think is going to be the resolution with the 33? Like, is KB going to reprogram him? Are they going to lock him in the brig and interrogate him? And Fern's going to dominate, assert her dominance as captain again? Like, how do you see that moving forward?
Interesting. I definitely could see KB, and actually, this actually segues into what I was going to mention, which is that I do think in this episode, I agree with you. I think we got some really good Neil content. Neil is cute. He's helpful. He's nice. All stuff that he gives the food away at the end. He like sacrifices himself by
Hmm.
throwing the rocks at 33 to like charge him over until Jod unplugs him. And I really did like the Fern scene where it's the first moment where she feels like she's like messing up and not sort of up for it, which I feel like works extra well in comparison to what we know about her mom, who sort of puts, I think, undue expectations
Hmm.
on her
Hmm.
in a way that I think is very good content, and I really
Yeah.
like that.
Very relatable.
I do feel like we're probably not getting quite enough of either the kids or Jod to a degree. I maybe would have expected even we're halfway through, right? I would have maybe expected a little more. I feel like they were like I feel like they were interesting enough characters to start with, but I don't think we've like gone much further with any of them,
Hmm.
especially Wim, who was
Yeah.
kind of like our like leading boy.
Yeah.
Um, and then KB, I feel like is probably the most underserved of any of the main four because she hasn't really gotten like the main focus, and she's sort of like I feel like the fourth of the four of them, unfortunately, at the
Yeah.
moment. So I would like to see more of that, and it could come certainly even by next episode, and that's a perfect way to do it. Is like her being the one. I feel like her tech skills, she is very good in the ship when they first find it to figure out how to get it going, and so her being the one to like fix 33, maybe with the help of Jod, I think definitely does make sense. That would be very interesting, especially if your theory about like 33 being aware of Jod in some like if there's some connection there when they reset him could be fun where like Jod's very nervous about it being reset
Hmm.
um and KB has the ability to do it, and then Fern being as like assertive as she is. So I think that could be really fun and a good way to get us more KB
Yep.
content in the next episode. I think that I don't expect 33 to be much of an adversary move. That
Hmm.
felt like to me the like one episode, and just I did like it. It's like, oh, of course he would be the one. It's such an easy explanation, but often that's like the best explanation, like the most obvious one. Whatever theory that is the most
Occam's
obvious.
razor.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
Occam's razor. So I liked that, and then him, and then the trigger of like anytime somebody asked me to like do like they attack. So I thought that was good, and that feels fun because that does also feel like something that could be set up where like is there any more of that stuff like set within him that like at a crucial moment where they need him once they have him back on his side, would he suddenly turn against them, perhaps when he meets his old captain Owen?
Yeah, I wonder if we will meet his old captain eventually. And I feel like the Jod theory is there's a non-zero chance, but my bet is that it's not that. So I wonder if their adventures will lead them back to 33's original captain, or maybe he was one of the skeletons on the ship. So who knows?
I have a
But
theory.
oh, please.
I don't know who it is, but who have we met on At-Atten who would have crash landed
Mm,
there and then assimilated? I mean, is Wim's dad out of the question? That feels to me to be Wim's
mm.
dad or Fern's mom
Fern's mom.
are probably the most likely like their captains.
Yeah,
and I do feel like Wim's dad gives. I feel like my thing here is like Wim's dad. They both kind of like. I guess they're both kind of not that they're bad parents, but they both have had qualities that have like.
They're not great parents.
Yeah, they're not winning mom and dad of the year. So what would make more sense in terms of the way that is Wim's dad, has he been so stressed and he's inattentive because he's secretly like trying to bring down whatever's happening at that end, versus Carrie Condon's character, who is more like trying to uphold everything that's happening, you know?
That's possible too. Either, I guess my initial guess might be Carrie Condon's, Fern's mom, if I had to place a bet right now. Because the kids seem to have no idea what exactly their parents do. You know, the whole genesis of the planet seems very nebulous. So yeah, let's put a pin in that, and we'll hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be able to come back and be like, yeah, we knew we were onto something.
So let me just put it. So let me look at what they're Farah, who's Fern's mom, is a teacher and undersecretary, which I don't know what that means.
Yeah, very vague job title.
And then Wim's dad is, let's see if I can find what he was. I can't remember what he does. I don't even see him.
It was like it had something to do in finance, or like. Not they didn't call it finance, but it had to do with money and currency or something. Okay, if I recall.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I'll put my bet then on. You said Carrie Condon. That's who you got far. I'll put it on Wim's dad as the bet. That's what that seems more fun if we have.
Yeah, then we'll see who's right.
Viewpoints. Yeah.
To your point about KB a couple minutes ago, I was a little like in the first episode. I was like, of course they made the Asian character the one with the robot head implant, and now in this episode they showed she's socially awkward, and like it's I don't know, just as an Asian person I'm just like come on. So hopefully we get more. I did get a chuckle out of, after the first episode, in the episode discussion someone was saying, or I guess it was the second episode, they noticed KB has two moms and that KB's character gives off two mom energy. And I did get a laugh out of that. But yeah, I'm hopeful that they dig in more. It seems like this was kind of like the Neil episode. So hopefully each of the kids kind of gets their moments to shine. But yeah, I just felt like there have been a couple moments where I'm like, come on, we can do better than just like the socially awkward tech kid. There's got to be more depth there. Hopefully we end up seeing that.
Yeah, that's a fair critique, I think, of the show so far.
And I'm all for diverse casting, but it's like, you know, you can make the Asian actor play the goofy wannabe Jedi kid. You know, you could not necessarily like pigeonhole people to that degree. And it's a small critique. I like, you know, it is. I'm not like canceled skeleton crew, but it is something that I have thought about.
No, I'm with you. I feel like we're at the point where for me, in terms of like, for me, it's trans representation where there's not enough of it for me to feel like I'm pretty okay with like stereotypical, like if I see the same version of the trans story that I've seen so many times, I'm like, come on, I don't know. Yeah. And that's to me where I start to be like, I'm okay. Like there are ways in which sometimes, like for me, like when I see somebody who's like so stereotypically like trans, the type of trans person that you'd see typically a trans woman in who's like ultra femme in a movie, I'm like, that obviously is representation for many like versions of trans people, but like we've seen it before, so can we have different versions of representation when we get to a point where you're like, you know, I even feel like this a little bit with like queer representation that we're like in terms of like gay men or lesbian, that like there are enough that like sometimes the version that feels the most stereotypical, I'm like, yeah, okay, but like I also have all of this to go enjoy, you know, so that's how I am feeling about representation. But okay, it is nice to see Jude help he steals the money at the beginning, but he ultimately does come to their saving and saves the kids from being attacked from 33.
And you brought this up earlier, like we don't know a ton about Jude yet, and I wish we had gotten to see that sequence. We did get the hilarious moment of him being like, okay, just shoot me, you know, like just the defeated. I got a good laugh out of that. But yeah, I wish we had seen him negotiating, because like it's a lot of telling, like, and not showing. And, you know, we get the sense that he is this like silver tongued, very charismatic, can talk his way out of trouble kind of person. And it would have been nice to see that in action. And it is funny that like he ends up saving the day by trying to screw the kids over and stealing their money, and that, you know, the task was failed successfully, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity. I think maybe where, I don't know what they could have taken out. Maybe some of the awkwardness of the training montage or something, but just to give us a little bit of Jude working with that other clan and figuring out the deal. Maybe even in a flashback format or whatever, not to give it away, but I don't know. I think they could have done that more, a little bit better from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty much it from the episode. I feel like we maybe can spend some time, like, are we any closer to what's happening? I like that we're thinking about the captain, because I think that's like a mystery that like maybe purposefully they've there's obviously the central mystery of like, what is at and why is it secret? Why does he want to, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like there's actually a lot of mystery on the show, which is Atten, Jude, and then now this, like, that's kind of why I feel like I haven't like been keeping the captain one as pressing, because there's so much else to do. Do you feel like you got any more momentum? I mean, we could stick with Jude for a second because we're there. Did you get any more clues or information as to like who Jude is? Why is he a Force user? I feel like this is the second biggest question on the show right now.
I think he's just a pure pirate who happens to have the Force. There was I forget. I think he was, when he was talking with 33, he's immediately asking about the treasure. You know, that seems to be his main motivation, is getting to Atten to get to this mystery treasure. But then the question is, like, had he heard of, like, had he been there before? Was he trying to go there? You know, what's his deal exactly? But clearly this is a big part of like pirate lore, that there is this like hidden treasure on Atten. Maybe 33's original captain is the one who hid it there, and who knows? But it seems like to me he's just a scoundrel trying to make his way through the universe, and he happens to be able to do a couple Force tricks. I was curious when he showed up out of the fog if he had maybe pulled some sort of Jedi mind trick on the other clan, but then it later got explained that he just paid them off. But yeah, that's my read on him, is that he's just very charismatic, very driven by his you know, reputation as a pirate, and wants to like get his big score. You know, it's kind of giving Jack Sparrow a little bit.
I do think we talked about this, I think, earlier in a previous episode. There's a little bit of like, I talk about the kid with the broom scene. I think it's in the Last Jedi. I believe that's right.
On the casino planet.
Yes. And I think if he turned it, I think whatever version, like, I'm mostly like, yeah, whatever. I'm not like so like, oh, it has to be this thing or another thing. I think like if they're like, he's a Skywalker, I'm like, I don't know.
Please, no.
That's like the worst version of that. But if it's like, oh, he's related to somebody we like, if there's a connection that we don't know, that's like a physical, like a blood relation, I'm like the most disappointed in that. But I'm still like, whatever. I have my hopes so like low with Star Wars content that I'm like, that's fine. I do think there's something very powerful about a kid's show where you can say that like he's a bad dude, but he can change, like he can decide to be better. He can use literally like use the Force for good. He can choose to be on the good side of the balanced Force. I think there's something very powerful about that I like, that whether he was, I could see the level of darkness we've got. I could definitely see it being related to Order 33. It also doesn't have to be. He could just be like a kid. He could just be like a person who became like is a Force user, and there was no Jedi Order for him to like be a part of. And the fact that he like went down that path and then eventually decides through the good naturedness of these kids and whatever else is happening via Atten decides like, oh, I'll be a good guy. I really, that to me is that's a great story. That's what and so I don't want to set my expectations that that's what's going to happen. Cause again, if they're like, no, he was this guy's apprentice, you're like, yeah, fine, whatever. But I do kind of like the like wayward Jedi who had no reason to like, he just had to become a pirate. But then eventually he like, you know, he's very Christmassy too, of like, you know, is he like Scrooge, where it's like
Scrooge, no, there's definitely a non-zero chance we get hit with an opportunity where he has to choose between the treasure and saving the kids, or something like that.
100%.
Like I can very clearly see that happening. Like if we're talking like future predictions, like I'm going to book that one as a scene where, you know, Jude is facing this. He's like holding on with the force, like the treasure is about to fall down this crevasse and get lost in the core of At-Atten, or he can save the kids or whatever. And he's going to choose to save the kids and like redeem himself as a, you know, the Jedi that could have been or something like that. So yeah. And I think that fits like kind of a lot of the heroic themes, and anyone can be a hero of Star Wars, you know, and obviously like, yeah, obviously Luke is Darth Vader's son and he's got this lineage to him. But I think part of the whimsy of the world that they've built over the years of Star Wars is just like that, you know, wistfulness and that like, you know, the openness and possibility in the universe there. So I think I can see that happening.
All right. I like that. Just quickly, do you have any thoughts on At-Atten after this episode? We get this like there's seemingly other, like it's sort of been like forgotten, but there's this place that had the etchings of the coordinates of this other planet that had it there. That's then is scratched off by 3033. So the piece of the lore that is added for that to me is that not only did this pirate ship go there and got stranded there, but there's also a concerted effort by the captain who brought the ship there to also make sure that this place was not known.
Cannot
so
be
basically
found.
like, yeah. And that actually, I think actually does make more sense for Kerry Condon. Actually, it leads because I think that if you think about the captain coming, staying there, making sure that nobody else could like do it on the way there, making sure nobody else will know that this place exists, is basically to like, it's not, I don't know that we'll see like, I guess you could see treasure, but basically what Kerry Condon wants is like, if you think about this, if she's the captain, she just wants a good life, right? And she wants her daughter to have a good, she's like, you have to be successful and work your way up to like, you have to be top of the class, as opposed to like Wendell Wimsdad, who just seems like stressed out by being there. Like that
true.
doesn't, but I do think, okay, if I'm on Kerry Condon, so Farah is like the captain and is evil. Could Wendell be stressed out because he's actually trying to like take down whatever is happening? Is he involved in that? I don't know how interesting that is, but yeah,
it could be. Maybe that could, if they do a season 2, maybe then they go further into the unraveling of what's going on there. Because yeah, you got to think the logistics of it. Like, I wonder if the pirates, whoever was captaining the ship originally, they found all these other planets. They picked one that they want to go to, and then they're going to say, like, we're going to infiltrate the government of it, or we're going to settle down there, and so no other pirates can ever find us there. I'm just curious, like, what's in the supervisor's tower on At-Atten? Like, do they know where all those other planets are? Did they, like, somehow sanction the destruction of these other places so that they're the last hidden unknown and that there's no loose ends to where they could ever be found? Like, are they trying to live in just like this perfect utopian bubble where they can just exist? I don't know. There's potential, like, pretty heavy, like, deep, dark political themes and like subterfuge going on there. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm sure we won't find out till episode 7 or 8, but there's a lot of potential, and I'm kind of glad we've kind of noodled through some of the possibilities and how it could turn out. Because yeah, like with these big name actors in the parent roles, like there's got to be something there. Plus the kids, like, knowing that they have these weird nebulous jobs that they don't know anything about. Like there's something fishy there.
Yeah, I do think for me, the way I'm expecting this to tie into the rest of the universe is much more from the vein of like, how is it related to the Old Republic and Sith Order, basically, and like what happens in the sequel movies, in a way that like isn't just pirates holding up shop and being like, let's just live here. I feel like there has to be like a reason. I feel like it is like a preservation of like that order. Like I mean, and that's pretty dark thematically too. But again, this is the stuff I love from Star Wars, which is like how much are you willing to abide by basically fascist rule, empire rule, to have a peaceful life that nobody can. And that's to me where like you'll get the reveal. And I really do think you're right that it's Kerry Condon, because like she's the one most trying to preserve that nature, and a pirate coming and then being like, oh, there's no treasure, but you could just be like in charge of like this like really carefree life in society. That to me, that's
Sounds pretty cushy.
Yeah. So that to me is where I lean. And yeah, and then if Wendell's dad is working within that system, like I would be stressed too. I don't think it's a very fun job to be like,
No,
like
probably
working
not.
under fascist rules. So that's to me like that all makes especially because I feel like Wendell's dad seems like Fern seems more annoyed by her mom in the way that all kids can be annoyed by their parents, in the way that like parents who want their children to be successful, as opposed to like Wendell's dad wouldn't read, or Wim's dad wouldn't read him a bedtime story, and that's me.
Right.
So
That's
to me, I'm more
yeah.
likely to be like, there must be something that like actually makes him a good person. There must be a reveal that makes him
He's
a good
got to get
person.
redeemed somehow.
I think so. So okay, I think this is very fun. The other thing I was going to mention, this is doing pretty well. It's the #1 streaming show on Disney.
Nice. Good.
I think even I'd have to check whether Agatha All Along. No, it's not it's not even close to be. I think
Probably not. Yeah.
This year, but this month it's the #1 streaming show.
Nice.
And it's been doing quite well these past few weeks. So
That's good to
it
hear.
does seem to have been a success. Rotten Tomatoes still 95% critic score and 80% like popcorn meter, which is the public score. The 95, you would also wonder whether people got all of the screeners as well. So if they've watched the whole thing and are still happy with it, that seems reassuring as well. So we're about halfway through. The other thing I would like to do, we'll let folks know. We won't let you know. Just be forewarned that like scheduling in the next week or two might be difficult. We might not be able to get these out even the day after, because next week the episode drops on Christmas Eve and then it drops on New Year's Eve. So the episodes might come out a little bit later in the week. That might just leave us some room for some guests maybe to join us if we're giving folks a little more time to catch up and watch. So we'll be back probably a little bit later next week with our episode 5 recap. Anything else you want to plug or promote, Owen? Anything else you got going on?
Not a ton. Tonight, actually, I'm podcasting with Tyson Apostle on the Pod Has Spoken over on the Ringer Network. It'll be my first time really talking with him, so I'm very excited. So yeah, Survivor 47 finale tonight. So excited to check that out and check out, whatever RHAP coverage, and not to plug another network, but we all love Tyson over here. So
that's okay. He has a regular podcast on the RHAP network. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll be over there.
Just listen to like the recap show first, and then you can go listen to Owen.
Exactly. If you want a secondary Survivor finale recap podcast, go check out the Pod Has Spoken with me and Tyson.
Or don't live your life.
Or
do whatever you want. Yeah. All right. Make sure to subscribe to We Know Scripted TV. Lots of recaps still. Silo, Dune Prophecy will be back for the finale. The Tastemakers is happening, and very excitingly, very shortly, the top 10 TV shows and the top 10 movies of the year polls will be released. Josh Wiggo and I will be getting together on 2 separate pods, talk about the top 10 TV shows and the top 10 movies of the year. Owen, do you have you want to put your thumb on the scale? Do you have a favorite television show of the year? So or you don't even have to say what you would vote at #1, but like what springs out?
One that comes to mind is Shrinking season 2. I've really been enjoying Shrinking.
Okay.
What else have I watched this year? Culinary Class Wars is probably not in the discussion, but that's been one of my favorite shows of the year.
Is that a reality show?
It is. It is a reality.
All reality show ballots.
All scripted.
They're thrown out. They're thrown out. But there's a
What?
separate thing where you could put your favorite reality show, and we'll tally the unsurprisingly, the RHAP community really loves Survivor, Owen.
Oh, shocking. Yeah, Shrinking season 2 is the one that jumps out. Abbott Elementary. I always love Abbott Elementary.
You're a comedy person. Is that what I'm gleaning? Or those are just like the comedies have been good this year?
The comedies have been good this year. I'm trying to think of dramas I've been watching, but none are from this year. Like I cruised through Reacher over the past couple weeks, and I really enjoyed it. But I think season 2 came out last year. So
let me give you in no particular order some of the ones that have been getting. Did you watch The Bear? Are you on The Bear?
Oh yes, I am a fan of The Bear.
Season 3 a little dramas. Cold. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. That's funny. That's funny.
I just pisses me off that they're robbing Abbott Elementary of all the comedy awards, but whatever.
The Penguin. I didn't mean to say. I meant to say Fallout, which you mentioned earlier. Came out earlier this year.
Was this year. Goodness,
that was this year. Shogun was this year.
Oh, I love Shogun. I loved Shogun. Give that my top vote. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, you could fill out a ballot, Owen. You could fill out a whole
beautiful. I will.
Ballot. Okay. All right. Well, that is happening later this week. We'll be back later next week with our episode 5 recap of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Bye.